So I'm going to get blasted. So say, well, why are you going to say you're going to get ripped? Here's what it is. Sometimes we get caught up in the moment and, we evaluate a team. You say, oh, man, the Cardinals should have signed that guy, should have done this, should have done that. And listen, I do that too. I'm no better, no worse than any of you. But what I like to do is kind of let things breathe a while, and then you go back and you just sort of, you kind of do your own review all over again about where the Cardinals are good going into this season or where they're lacking. And sometimes let me speak of myself. Sometimes I think that the Cardinals are worse off than they really are. And the separation of time, when you can sort of circle back after a period of time and you sort of have a more level-headed look at this. I've talked about this some, but I want to present it another way. The Cardinals, like I said, yeah, can they get better in terms of their position players? Well, there's always a way to get better. But I'm really not that worried about their position player group. In fact, I believe they're going to have one of the best player position groups in the majors. Well, Miklasz, why would you say that? That's incredible. Are you drinking the Kool-Aid? Is DeWitt paying you? That kind of stuff. No. I just look at who they have coming back, and they've got most of these guys coming back. And, yeah, we can all break out in a cold sweat about Paul DeJong, every day of the week. Paul DeJong's a bit player in this. Could they do more with their final roster spot? Yeah. But, when you look at how they are at each position, even though I'm among those of you who are just like frustrated to no end about the Paul DeJong thing, but you shouldn't let it take away from all of the really good stuff that they've got, good talent that they've got on hand. And it's talent that, if you look at it position by position, it's a lot better than people, even ardent Cardinal fans, assume it is. If you compare it to where they were last season, and they're bringing all these position players back. And they've upgraded at the catcher position. So let me do this. I'm not going to give you fancy pants stats, but what I am going to do, and this is all like wins above replacement at each position in the majors as a group, right? Like when I say outfield, it's not an outfielder. It's all their outfielders, most of whom are coming back. Now, let me give you an example. So last season, at the catcher position, the Cardinals were 26th. This is overall quality, offense, defense, base running. 26th or 27th, depending on whether you want to count the tie and list them at 27th or not. Okay, that's bad. That stinks. At first base, number one in the majors in wins above replacement, number one. Second base, number one. Shortstop. Well, Nolan Gorman's the worst prospect they've ever had, Bernie. What are you talking about? He should be in single A. He's not a major league player. Number one last year, Cardinals second baseman, first in the majors. Shortstop, number 5 in the majors. How could that happen with Tommy Edman and Paul DeJong? How could they be number 5? Because defense matters, especially when you don't have pitchers who can strike anybody out. Third base, you'd probably not be shocked to find out that Cardinals had the number 1 wins above replacement at third base. Their entire outfield as a group last season, 5th in the majors, number 5. Not number 25, but number 5. If you look at, for example, if you look at left field, that wasn't as strong as some other areas. It was 17th overall. But before you say, see, believe it or not, the Cardinals got 32 home runs and around 100 and so RBIs out of their left field spot last season. 32 home runs is the keeper, though.
That's pretty strong.
It is.
I would have not guessed that.
Bro Neal hit 14. Yepes hit 12. Dickerson hit 6. There are a couple of straggler home runs in there somewhere. But those guys alone, those 3 accounted for 32 home runs. I have accounted for all 32. I'm sorry. O'Neill, for being out as much as he did, it's pretty amazing that he drove in 56 runs last year and was one of the best RBI men on the team. But anyway, those three guys combined for 32 homers and 124 RBIs. What are you talking about, Bernie? They suck. I don't think so. And actually, it's going to be better this year. Another year of experience for Yepes, and I think O'Neill's got a chance to be healthier. But anyway, other than catcher, the worst position they had in terms of wins above replacement was 17th, which is not exactly shameful, especially when you add in the 32 home runs out of that position. All right, center field, they ranked 10th. Right field, they ranked 5th.
10th in center is higher than I thought.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
And offensively in center field, they were above average, but not great. But a lot of that had to do with Dylan Carlson having the injuries that really just made him a weak hitter last couple months of the season. So I'm going to be a pest and just recap this, but I'm going to do it without pausing. Catcher, 26th. That position ranked 26th among the 30 teams. First base, number 1. Second base, number 1. Shortstop, number 5. Third base, number 1 in the majors. Outfield overall, 5th best in the majors. Left field, 17th. Center field, 10th. Right field, 5th. But the overall ranking was in the top 5. And even left field, which was, other than catcher, was their weakest position, they got 32 home runs and 124 RBIs from that spot. I would take that. They're going to have to, we all know they're going to have to do their best to compensate for Albert Pujols no longer being the primary DH. But they had a lot of other guys DHing last year too. But I think they have enough people to where you team them together and you use matchups. I think they'll be fine at designated hitter, if not maybe that quite as potent as they were last year. So my point is that they're all set, and their biggest weakness is catcher, and they have upgraded that in a significant way with Wilson Contreras. And he'll be even more valuable than we assume because his throwing arm, which is a rocket, will be much more important under some of the new stuff last year, including a limit on pickoff throws to first base and also the physically bigger surface area on the base paths, which makes it easier to steal because you got a bigger landing spot when you slide. His arm will really do a lot for them defensively. Relative to if there were not the new bases going into effect. But even then, as I've pointed out again, it doesn't matter. I could do 3 hours saying this straight, and I would still be told that Contreras is framing. Worst I've ever seen. Actually, he's been above average if you take the last 3 years combined. He's been a +2 in framing. But I get it. He's the worst that ever lived. I'm being obnoxious now. I apologize. Let me try to be nicer.
Yeah, I'll add one thing to your stolen base conversation. One thing that's going to play a part of that, and you're going to need a guy who's got a rocket, and that is you can only throw over a couple times, and you can't play the game as much as you used to in terms of I'm going to hold the ball, because you got to throw it.
You got a pitch clock.
Yep. So
it's exactly right.
Two things taken away from the pitcher in terms of his arsenal at trying to limit that. So that's going to put the onus a little bit more on the catcher to be able to throw, and he can throw. We know that.
So the way I look at it, just to wrap this part of it up, the way I look at it, the Cardinals in 2022, hold on, I got this. It got away from me for a second. They had the top position player group in the National League in terms of wins above replacement, and they were behind the Dodgers. Actually, I take that back. The Cardinals were second in the National League behind the Dodgers, which makes sense, I guess, because the Dodgers, have a $200+ million payroll. Mm-hmm. And the Yankees had a slightly higher wins above replacement from their position group than the Cardinals. So the Cardinals second in the National League, third in the majors, their position player group. And they're all coming back. except for Yadier Molina, who is retired, and by bringing in one of the best hitting catchers in baseball, who's good. He's pretty good defensively, maybe really good when we factor in the throwing. So the Cardinals take their weakest position, and they've made it a much stronger position. So the point being, it's not like 7, 8 guys left from that group last year that were part of that group last year. Corey Dickerson, yes. But they're bringing back the band pretty much intact. And the one prominent guy that's not coming back, well, the Cardinals spent $87.5 million to bring in a replacement for the retiring Yadier Molina. So my point is, why do we sit, and I've done it too, why do we sit and like constantly have high anxiety over their position players? I was like looking at Cards Talk the other day, or maybe it was the day that Correa made his deal with the Twins. There's all kinds of talk on there. Well, the Cardinals need to go trade for their shortstop, Royce Lewis, who tore up his knee, by the way. And he's pretty good. But the Cardinals don't have a crisis at shortstop. Again, this gets back to what I'm talking about. It's like the Brian Reynolds obsession. Brian Reynolds, great hitter, can't play much defense at center field, but and this kid, younger guy, Royce Lewis, he's got potential. Don't get me wrong. I don't know how good he is defensively. I didn't research him, but I'm guessing it wasn't great. But why are we worrying about that when the Cardinals' weakness, and it's glaring, and it shouts out to you that it's a weakness, is pitching? Both starting pitching and bullpen. Why are we worrying about replacing Tommy Edman at shortstop with a guy that blew out his knee last year? Does that make any sense to anybody?
Well, those that are yelling and making the noise, they see, well, all these shortstops are available. We should go get one. That's the only thing I can come up with.
Yeah, it's just like,
and everybody wants an all-star at every position, and that's unrealistic.
Yeah, and they're bringing up people though that would a couple of these people be better than DeYoung? Well, yeah, we know that already. But is it a crisis? No. Mm-hmm. But let me, I talked about this a lot, but I'll just do a recap. So I gave you all of these the groups of position players Cardinals have. And most of them are in the top 5 in major leagues last year, and they're going to get better because of the improvement in catcher offensively. And even if they weren't top 5, like, for example, offensively, you didn't have a position other than catcher worse than like 15th. Okay. Here's the thing that I've been trying to hammer home. The Cardinals have lost their way, and they have really declined in terms of the quality of their pitching, which used to be their strength. So last season in the major leagues, overall, starters, relievers, everybody, the Cardinals were 17th among the 30 teams in wins above replacement. Their starting pitchers were 16th, and their bullpen was 17th. So, I don't know. I think if we're going to get out the worry beads, I think the worry beads should be used in relation to the pitching staff.
Pitching staff and guys that can strike people out.
Yeah. This position player group, by the way, was tied for 3rd in the majors last year in defensive runs saved, and they were 4th in outs above average. It's a really good group. There is room for improvement because there's room for improvement everywhere. It's a really good group. The pitching staff should make everyone nervous because they don't have their guys get hurt too much. They fade out too much. They don't have strikeout power coming out of the bullpen except for Helsley, Gallegos. They don't strike people out other than that. Their rotation does not strike people out other than Steven Matz, I think, he's got a pretty good strikeout rate as it is. So if you're going to get the worry beads out, use them on the pitching staff, please. That's all I'm saying. This position player group's really good, and I feel much better about it than I imagine I would. You know why? That's why I do so much homework, because I clear my brain and start over to say, okay, well, let's see how good they really were. They're really good. And, they lost two straight to the Phillies. So that means the 162 games that they did play were worthless, meaningless, devoid of any type of praise. Gotcha. Anyway, I feel pretty good about their position players moving forward. That's all I wanted to say. I went over it, but I had to go position by position so you can get the full scope of this. And we'll see. We'll see if they can match it or exceed it in 2023. If they do, and the pitching staff's looking good, it's better for whatever reason, they should have a really good team. And the team would be, I don't know, especially if the pitching staff gets turned up in a trade or something, then they would be more viable, at least going into the postseason. But if they don't address the pitching, and if they remain stuck in the past, I don't see how they're, like Derek Gould and I were talking about it at between 3:30 and 4 o'clock. If you want to listen to that, go to, after the show, a little earlier or later this evening, 590thefan.com or the 590thefan app. You can hear what Derek had to say about it. That's the one thing where the Cardinals seem to have a blind spot. They don't recognize about how you have to put a rotation together at this period of time in Major League Baseball. Strikeout power, you have to have two really strong guys at the top of your rotation. Here, like Jim, and this is all tied in. I did a thing today because I've been doing these reports on individual Cardinals players from 2022 and what it could tell us about 2023. Scoops at DannyMac.com. And I did Genesis Cabrera today. And look, I knew he was bad last year. He was horrendous last year. It was worse than I thought. He was one of the worst relievers in Major League Baseball, not just in St. Louis. He was near the bottom. In fact, he was one step above being the worst reliever in baseball in terms of his ranking, wins above replacement. He was below the replacement level, and he was good in 2021. He fell apart. He had problems even before he contracted COVID. His ERA when he returned after contracting COVID was about his ERA was about 10.38. They sent him down to Memphis, if you remember, at the end of August. So let me ask this question. We can't be sure that he's going to rebound and be better. We can't be. He might be, but there's just no way to sit here today and express confidence in that premise. He was a mess last year, an absolute mess. Remember the time he boiled over on the mound, and Marmol was taking him out of that July 15th Friday night game at Busch Stadium, and he spiked the ball in anger, and he tried to storm off the mound in a terrible disrespect to the manager. And Marmol, to his credit, grabbed his arm and said, "No, you don't do it this way." And then the Pujols reamed him out, barked at him in the dugout.
Yep.
Here's a question. Who's your shutdown left-handed reliever in the bullpen in 2023? Class?
Searching for an answer.
Until today, when I was wondering about that myself, I said, hey, Bernie, you're really dumb because this is just occurring to you. They do not have an established left-handed reliever where you go, wow, okay, man, look, this guy's really, really good. If you have that one shutdown guy from the left-handed side, I mean, it's not ideal. You want to have two of those guys, but it's a good start. They don't have a guy. Who's the guy?
There is none. You're right.
But let's fret about getting the Twins back up shortstop. Yeah, we don't worry about getting an actual left-handed reliever that can overpower people and shut down the other side late in games, especially left-handed. Don't worry about that. Got to try to find a third-string shortstop. Damn it! Don't worry about this pitching stuff. I'm being obnoxious.
There's some issues. You're right.